Part 44. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 431. In the Battle of the Fortress, the strongest resistance force in the entire Mondo continent was disintegrated. The Mage Guild was occupied by the Earth Army, and countless magic-related materials, books, and materials were all taken over by the military. There were also some magicians who had fled with excellent mage apprentices before the war and kept the fire for the Mage Guild, and they were all wanted by the Earth military. As the result of the Battle of the Fortress was announced, the entire continent was shaken again. Countless mages will call this day the end of the law. Countless originally fragmented resistance forces gave up resistance after learning that the Mage Guild was also defeated. Only a few diehards still insisted on resisting, but under the encirclement of the Earth Army, their failure was only a matter of time. In general, the entire Mondo continent has been completely unified by the Earth Army. In the southwest of Mondo continent, in a medium-sized city called Klinlo, Walter and more than a dozen soldiers were following a soldier wearing nano armor and walking towards the square in the center of the city. Because of the rule and propaganda of the Earth military, at least now in public, no one dares to call the Earth soldiers silver demons again, but call them Tianwei, the guards from the God realm and the Heaven realm. Although there are still occasional attacks on Earth soldiers by local natives, in fact, for most ordinary people, because of the huge amount of food provided by the Earth, plus the low tax rate they have revised, and the magic education that will soon be popularized, their lives after the war are much better than before. This makes many poor people believe in Li Enping, the king of the legendary God realm, more. Walter followed behind Tianwei, watching the poor people around him put fear, envy, jealousy, and other eyes on them, and couldn't help feeling a little proud in his heart. Unexpectedly, his extremely reluctant surrender to the Earth Army has become the most correct thing he thinks he has done in his life. But every time at this time, he always thinks of Ed. It was he who gave up the position of team leader to the other party. Think about it, now the God realm has unified all the indigenous troops as the security forces, and Ed has become a high-level sheriff. He regretted more and more that he had refused to help the team leader. At this moment, the Tianwei in front stopped and put the huge instruments on his back on the ground. They were two strange cubes. After being put on the ground, Tianwei pressed a few times on their surfaces, and saw a series of deformations. One of the two instruments began to release light and the other began to spray mist. Although Tianwei didn't say anything, the Tianwei itself and the two strange machines were enough to attract the curiosity of the natives. As more and more people gathered around, Walter and his companions were responsible for alerting and standing around to prevent the crowd from getting too close to Tianwei and the two instruments. What is that? He is exhaling. Maybe it is a divine beast in heaven. The air means he is breathing, and the other one that is glowing should be his eyes. Ordinary people were talking about it, and two people in robes in the crowd also looked at the Tianwei and the instruments in the square with vigilance. They are members of the Anti-Demon Alliance, a force established by the remaining magicians who are still resisting the rule of the Earth. Both of them are mages. They recently fled to the city of Klinlo because of the pursuit of the ability users. One of the mages with a younger face asked, "There is only one Tianwei. Do you want to take action?" The older mage shook his head, "Don't alert the enemy. We haven't been here for long. Don't attract those lackeys." The lackeys he mentioned are naturally the Earth ability users who are responsible for encircling and suppressing the resistance of mages. The young mage nodded. But his eyes looking at the Tianwei were still full of hatred. He clearly remembered how his teachers, seniors, and classmates died under the enemy's artillery fire. He will always remember how many mages who were more powerful than him chose to commit suicide in despair on the day when the headquarters of the Mage Association was breached. The young mage said fiercely, "What do you think they want to do?" "I don't know." The older mage shook his head. What the two mages didn't know was that while they were observing the actions of the Tianwei here, In all large and medium-sized cities across the continent, there were soldiers from Earth doing the same thing. If the Mage Association is the holy place in the minds of all mages in Mondo continent and the spiritual symbol of all mages, then the demigod Dionysus is the saint in the hearts of all mages in Mondo continent and another spiritual symbol. The destruction of the Mage Association headquarters caused a large number of mages to give up resistance. Among the remaining mages who are still resisting, except for a small number of them who are tough and unyielding, most of them rely on their expectations of Dionysus to persist. They believe that as long as Lord Dionysus appears again, he will be able to lead them to defeat the evil demons and rule the world with magic again. Under the gazes of all kinds of eyes around, the Earth soldiers slowly operated the instruments on the ground. These two instruments are a projection system and an air screen system. They were specially designed by Li Anping for the next action of the Magic Continent. The projection system can be connected to the camera shooting in the distance via satellite. However, here, the signal sent by Li Anping is directly received through the satellite. The images around Li Anping are projected. The air screen system uses electronic and thermodynamic systems to inhale air, convert its imaging characteristics, and then release it to create a large-scale water vapor fog wall. It uses the principle of mirage imaging and the uneven molecular vibration between the fog wall and the air to form a specific image. A few minutes later, the huge air screen was assembled in the sky. With the flashing of the projection system, Li Anping's figure appeared directly in the sky. Almost all the citizens of Krolin could clearly see Li Anping's figure in the sky. Behind him was the endless void and the grey earth. All the citizens looked at the unique image in the sky with curiosity and surprise, guessing who the identity of the man in the image was. The same thing happened in all large and medium-sized cities across the Mondo continent. In addition to countless civilians who heard the news and walked out of the door to look at the sky, there were countless magicians, whether they surrendered to the Earth Army or insisted on resisting the Earth Army, all looked at Li Anping who appeared in the sky. They all vaguely guessed that the other party might have some big moves again. The older wizard hiding in the crowd of Krolin frowned. He said, "It seems to be an image formed by some kind of water vapor, which feels a bit like a mirage." The young wizard nodded and said, "I also don't feel any magic elements. Is it the technology of the God realm again? Because the technical level of the Earth is far ahead of the Mondo continent. Therefore, although the magicians of the Mondo continent have seized and studied weapons and various equipment from the Earth many times, the results are really not great. Especially, the principles of each of these equipment are too extensive, and they also have various advanced authority systems, network systems, and DNA systems to manage. Many instruments are used well in the hands of Earthlings, but they cannot be used in the hands of wizards. Some wizards believe that it is important to learn their strengths and technologies in order to defeat the evil demons. However, some wizards believe that all technological products belong to the magic of the silver demon. Its essence is also a kind of magic, but only the silver demon can use this spell. The older wizard didn't think so. He always thought that the weapons of the demons should be similar to alchemical products, which are things that everyone can use. It's just that there are some secrets in them that they haven't discovered. Maybe this is the key to defeating the demons. Amid the heated discussions and gazes of the crowd, Li Anping began to speak after confirming that all the projection systems and air screen systems were operating normally. He used the common language of the Mondo continent. With Li Anping's computing power, naturally, he could master this language in an instant without the need for language-savvy spells. Listening to his accent, there is no difference between him and the locals who have spoken the common language for more than 10 years. Only Li Anping's voice was directly transmitted through the speakers under the projection system, and countless loudspeakers installed in advance by the Earth Army also began to release his voice. These loudspeakers originally installed by the Earth Army were for better education and rule of the Mondo continent, to publicize some deeds of the gods or some basic enlightenment education. Now Li Anping's voice has also spread to every corner of the city. The place that appears in the picture is the devil's second moon above your head, which is what you call Netra. One of the moons of the magic star. I am Li Enping, your ruler. When Li Enping finished the sentence, all the cities in the Mondo continent were filled with exclamations. The magicians hidden in the crowd looked at the expressionless Li Enping in the image with fear and hatred. It's the king of gods. The ruler of the world, please forgive our ignorance. You are our master. In the square of Krolin, countless believers who now believe in Li Enping knelt down first. Of course, whether they really believe or are afraid, or have received contact from the Earth Army in advance, that is unknown. In short, as they took the lead in kneeling, the Nano Soldier Alliance and the security forces also knelt down. Then other civilians saw this situation and had to kneel down. Only a small number of people who were far away from the projection system and not near the square had the opportunity not to kneel down. The older mage also knelt down. He pulled the young mage beside him and said, "Kneel down first, don't attract too much attention." The young mage looked at the sky with a stubborn face, but when he saw that everyone around him gradually knelt down, and finally he was the only one standing on the ground, and even the sky guards looked over, he sighed secretly, cursed the evil god in his heart, and finally knelt on the ground. Everyone looked up at the sky and listened to Li Enping's voice and continued, "I will bring you a life of food and clothing, and give everyone the opportunity to receive education. Although there is still inequality in the entire Mondo continent, it will at least be hundreds of times fairer than before. But there are still some of you who want to go back to the past and live in that corrupt rule." Demon words confuse the public. The young mage looked at Li Enping in the sky fiercely, wishing to defeat him right now and then step on him hard. But he knew he couldn't do it because the gap in strength between the two was too big. So he endured the anger in his heart and continued to listen to the other party. "Dionysus, I know you can see me now and hear what I say. For 10 days, I will live broadcast here and wait for you for 10 days. I'll give you a fair chance to fight me. Of course, if anyone else wants to challenge me, they can come over. I'll be waiting for you here." After listening to what Li Enping said, the old wizard's heart sank. If no one could defeat Li Enping's deterioration in these 10 days, if even Lord Dionysus failed, or even didn't show up for the appointment, he couldn't imagine what a heavy blow this would be to the wizards of the entire continent. On the other hand, the young wizard on the side was full of excitement and began to look forward to the battle between the two. To be continued, please search for Ocean literature, the novels are better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lang Go. Chapter 432. For 10 days, Li Enping stood silently on Magic Star's second satellite, the moon known as Netra by the locals. Just the distance from Mondo continent to Netra is a distance that is enough to make most magicians despair. In other words, among the existing magicians in the entire Mondo continent, even if they want to challenge Li Enping, there are only no more than 3 people who have the strength to reach Li Enping. But within 10 days, no one came to Li Enping and challenged him. For 10 days, Li Enping's image always shrouded the sky of Mondo continent, giving the mages an extremely depressing feeling. The confidence brought by thousands of years of magical civilization was completely suppressed by Li Enping at this moment. Within 10 days, if there were countless mages at the beginning expecting that the demigod Dionysus could teach Li Enping a lesson in front of everyone, then as time went by, as Dionysus the influence of C's absence has continued to weaken the confidence of all the mages. This is exactly Li Enping's purpose. Completely defeat the mage class in Mondo continent mentally. Of course, it would be best if Dionysus could be lured out. On the floating aircraft carrier that has been repaired by Li Enping himself, not only the original damage has been completely repaired by Li Enping, but also the force field armor that Li Enping has just completed testing has been installed, which can increase or decrease the energy output and change the strength of the armor according to different conditions. As a result, the defense capabilities of current floating aircraft carriers have also been greatly improved. In the command room, SpecialAbilities looked at Li Enping in the image and asked the adjutant on the side, "How long until the 10 days expire?" 2 hours, sir. SpecialAbilities nodded and suddenly asked, "Do you think Dionysus will come?" Jing Guang, who was sitting on a chair beside him, said, "After fighting for so long on the Mondo continent, he only dared to make a sneak attack from a distance for the last time. I guess I don't dare to come." Yan Bei said calmly, "If he doesn't show up this time, he will never have a chance again." On the other side, Bai Xing, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground and not giving up a single moment to practice, suddenly stood up, and a breath of white breath came out of his mouth. In the eyes of SpecialAbilities and others, his body was full of it was like there were 720 black holes rising up, and even the light around him seemed to give people a distorted feeling. Jing Guang glanced at Bai Xing who was standing up, and a hint of interest flashed in his eyes. Now apart from Yan Bei, Bai Xing, the only one who has reached the 6th level, is the opponent he most wants to challenge. Especially after he no longer hides the power of his 720 acupoints, the energy emerging from all parts of his body every moment is like hundreds of active volcanoes. It seems that the power of destroying the world will burst out anytime and anywhere. As for Li Enping, Jing Guang has had dreams beyond him in the past. But seeing Li Enping now, this idea has completely disappeared. That was already against the rules of the game and fell into the category of bug. As long as Jing Guang's head wasn't broken, there would be no thought of challenging him at all. Bai Xing stood up and said, "If I were Dionysus, I would not come to die. I would leave this star system and find a place where your majesty will never find me and live a good life." "Oh, Lao Bai. It's not like you to have such no fighting spirit," SpecialAbilities joked. "This is not a matter of fighting spirit or lack of fighting spirit," Bai Xing said lightly. "In front of His Majesty, the so-called fighting spirit, talent, and hard work are meaningless. This kind of power is beyond human imagination. Just like an ant, no matter how hard it works, it is impossible to have the same impact on the sun in the sky. It's not a dimensional existence at all." Yan Bei frowned. "Although His Majesty is very powerful, it is too exaggerated to say so." "You don't understand." Bai Xing looked at Li Enping in the picture, showing a hint of palpitations. "When you become stronger, you will find that His Majesty's daily progress alone far exceeds that of the 5 of us. The total combat power. The difference between addition and subtraction and college calculus is not enough to describe it." Hearing Bai Xing's words, the 4 of them were a little surprised and didn't know what to say for a moment. At this moment, the entire floating aircraft carrier suddenly shook. Bai Xing was the first to react. He looked at the image in the sky and said, "He actually came." In many cities on the Mondo continent, there are magicians who have surrendered and magicians who are still resisting. These 10 days are the longest 10 days in their lives. Thousands of magicians flock to the city, looking at the image in the sky, looking forward to the arrival of Dionysus. From high expectations at the beginning to deep disappointment now. 10 days were about to pass, but there was still no sign of Dionysus, making their hearts sink deeper and deeper. In Krolin's square, the young mage disguised himself as a vendor and had been watching the live broadcast for 10 consecutive days. Even if it was the same image every day, and even if Dionysus never appeared, he kept watching. But now, the young mage is clenching his fist tightly. All his ideas from learning magic since childhood until now seem so ridiculous. The middle-aged mage on the side looked at his depressed look and said, "The first requirement of a mage is to be calm and rational. A mage who is irrational and loses his calm is not a qualified mage." The fact that Lord Dionysus did not come shows how powerful the other party is. The power of the adults should not be used to make meaningless sacrifices. Patience, accumulation, secretly accumulating strength, and waiting for opportunities are what we should do. I know the young wizard's voice was a little low. "I understand what you said. But if even Lord Dionysus can't defeat the other party, then can we?" Can we really defeat those evil demons by magic alone? Even if we endure for 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years, do we really have a chance to defeat them? Feeling that the other party had lost confidence in magic, the middle-aged wizard didn't know how to start for a moment, because even if what he said seemed to make sense, even he himself had lost some confidence in magic when facing the absence of Dionysus. Just when the conversation between the two fell into silence, the whole earth suddenly began to tremble continuously. Looking up, he found that the sky of the entire Mondo continent seemed to be covered by a layer of shadow since I don't know when. Li Anping stood quietly on the surface of the magic star number 2 satellite. This satellite is somewhat similar to the Moon. Because of its small size and mass, its gravity is very small, and it cannot form an atmosphere, which also causes a large amount of air loss. The entire surface is similar to the universe, and it is impossible to create an environment suitable for life. 10 days while waiting, Li Anping kept in touch with the Earth military through the satellite on the Magic Star, and then through the satellite, the network of the Amara Basin, the network of the White Earth Base, the network of the Space Station, and then the network of the Moon Base, and kept in touch with the Earth. Originally, Li Anping thought that Dionysus had given up everything on the Mondo continent and would not appear. But he did not expect that in the last 2 hours before the 10 days were about to expire, the other party would appear in a state far beyond his expectations. The huge body appeared from the direction of the sunlight, and the huge shadow enveloped Devil 2 and the Mondo continent one after another, as if the night had fallen. It was a substance that was so huge that it was 1/3 the size of the magic star. Its appearance was not the sphere or ellipsoid of an ordinary planet. With Li Anping from a horizontal perspective, it was an image of Dionysus that had been magnified tens of millions of times. The only difference was that this giant had 4 more arms, a total of 6 arms, and behind his head there was also a huge halo that radiated colorful light. No matter how powerful the giant in front of him was, this size alone was enough to cause amazing destructive power. As he approached, the entire Mondo continent was under huge gravitational changes. Rivers were diverted, the sea was surging, and the mountains were shaking. The magnetic field began to be affected. It can be said that even if this giant did nothing, just landing directly on the Mondo continent would be enough to completely destroy the entire continent's ecosystem and cause unprecedented disasters. If he could exhale, just blowing a breath could cause a huge red spot like Jupiter's Great Red Spot. A hurricane like this destroyed hundreds of countries. If he could punch, one punch would be enough to sink the entire Mondo continent into the sea and smash a deeper seabed in the sea, and the ripples of the fist hitting the sea surface would be enough to form a tsunami thousands of meters high. Looking at the terrifying giant in front of him, who could destroy the human civilization on the Mondo continent hundreds and thousands of times just by his existence, Li Anping showed an expectant smile on his face. The size of the opponent's body, the flow of energy, and the molecular structure of each piece of the body were all calculated clearly by Li Anping in an instant. But he still laughed, and his thoughts turned into electromagnetic signals, sweeping towards the opponent's body. Dionysus, I didn't expect that in such a short time, you could break through the limitations of magic and create your own, new power. This thing in front of you has far exceeded the scope of magic. You really exceeded my expectations. Hearing these words from Li Anping, Dionysus snorted coldly, and waves of disdain emanated from his mind. Li Anping, you don't understand at all, you don't understand how powerful I am now. But I will let you feel it. The power of God. The next moment, one of the giant's arms was raised, with enough power to crush the stars, and it smashed towards Li Anping's position. Before the punch arrived, the change in gravity alone had caused the orbit of Devil 2 and the magic star to tilt. In an instant, Li Anping had calculated that if the power of this punch hit Devil 2, the entire satellite would be brought to crash into the magic star. In the unprecedented collision, the continent would sink, the surface of the entire planet would be submerged by the sea, and the dust rising into the sky would be enough to cover the entire sky for more than 100 years. It's not very suitable for us to fight around here. When this message was sent, Li Enping flashed and appeared in front of the opponent's fist, and then slapped the opponent's fist with one hand. What is the strength of Li Enping now? In the past month, he has liberated his own power through quantum computing. His current combat power is equivalent to 32 times that of more than a month ago. So what effect will it cause if 32 Li Enpings exert their strength at the same time? It's like an ant shaking a tree, but the surprising thing is that the giant's arm stopped, just like an ant blocking the elephant's footsteps. The next moment, in Dionysus's eyes of shock and anger, the force field covered most of the area, with the giant's fist as the point of action, and a force strong enough to push the stars suddenly burst out. The whole giant roared, but still could not stop Li Enping from pushing him back thousands of kilometers, away from the location of the magic star. However, Li Enping did not show any smugness on his face. Whether it was volume, mass, or size, it was just the basic attributes of the giant in front of him, or even a defect. Dionysus's real power is far from erupting. To be continued. Please search for Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 433. Before encountering the chaos tide, Dionysus finally realized the method of mass energy conversion after a battle with Li Enping. He called it the so-called void creation. Theoretically speaking, he can turn any matter into energy, and he can also turn energy into any matter. All matter in the universe stores invisible internal energy, and the amount of this internal energy is far beyond human imagination. But if you use the mass energy formula, you can understand it very clearly. E equals mc²2, which means that the internal energy stored in an object is equal to the mass of the object multiplied by the square of the speed of light. So even 1 gram of matter can be converted into energy equivalent to 25 million degrees of electrical energy in the hands of Dionysus. Dionysus, who has mastered this ability, can destroy the entire human race of the magic star with just a snap of his fingers. Even if he wants, destroying the entire planet will only take a little more effort. If he continues to strengthen himself by absorbing the internal energy of matter, he may eventually become a super life form that surpasses stars, star clusters, nebulae, and even the entire Milky Way. At this point, Dionysus thought he had found the strongest path until he met the chaos tide and read the information it gave him. According to Dionysus's understanding, what was recorded in it was a super life form called Buddha, and their method of making combat puppets, which were called the Great Dark Sky. This combat puppet had powerful power. In Dionysus's view, it was probably a terrifying weapon that could only be used for wars with the starry sky as the battlefield. Originally, although Dionysus had a method of mass energy conversion and could create things in the void, in terms of offensive means, it was equivalent to adding a new antimatter bomb, winning purely by the accumulation of quantity. But when the chaos tide gave Dionysus the method of refining the great dark sky, he didn't need to know too much. He only needed to provide endless energy for the great dark sky, and then he could command this powerful weapon to launch various magical powers beyond imagination. After having the refining method, it was too simple for Dionysus, who had mastered the void creation and possessed infinite energy. This also doubled his destructive power. So when Li Enping burst out with enough power to push the stars and pushed the great dark sky tens of thousands of kilometers away, Dionysus was a little surprised, but not panicked at all. For him, the tide of chaos and the Buddha who invented the war weapon of the great dark sky. These lives are his future goals. As for Li Enping in front of him, he is just a frog in the well who still has his eyes on the planet and the earth. Do you want to change the battlefield? I naturally have no objection to this. For Dionysus, all the creatures on the Mondo continent are far less precious than his own life. But if he can keep the continent as his hometown, he will naturally not object. At the same time as he finished speaking, countless substances on the body of the great dark sky directly detonated his internal energy, and the next moment, with tens of millions of particle streams and flames spraying out, the huge body of the great dark sky has already flown into the endless void at sublight speed. Even with his huge body comparable to that of a planet, he is just a speck of dust in the vast universe. When the great dark sky was more than 10 million kilometers away from the magic star, Dionysus looked at Li Anping, who was still standing on the fist of the great dark sky, sneered, and launched an attack. Infinite light. On the head of the great dark sky, millions of eyes opened at the same time. Inside each eye, countless photons were forcibly aggregated and then turned into various rays. The light ball, even the shape of lightning, rushed to Li Anping's position at the speed of light. The pure white light looked like a gift from the gods, but it had enough destructive power to penetrate the continental shelf. Cannon fire formed by photon stream. Is this what attacked the floating aircraft carrier? Just as the cannon formed by photons covered Li Anping, his fists were already swinging, and the light-speed fist collided with the photon stream. A huge explosion occurred on the fist of the great dark sky, directly blasting his fist, which was larger than the entire bayou, into countless fragments. But in Dionysus's disdainful eyes, endless energy was released directly under his control, and then the entire fist was gradually restored by the method of void creation. This superfast regeneration ability has far exceeded the so-called regeneration, and it should be more accurate to say that it is remodeling. At the same time, the other 5 arms that were tens of thousands of kilometers long slowly stretched out, and the 5 huge fists swung out a punch at the same time, just like the sky falling and the earth collapsing, pressing towards the position where Li Anping was. While swinging his fists, the gravity ripples that were enough to cause serious space-time interference had torn everything around Li Anping into the most basic particles. Also, because of the serious space-time disturbance, the light could not propagate in a straight line, so that Li Anping lost the opportunity to leave by photochemical transformation. The next moment, the 6th fist that had just recovered, with enough force and gravity to distort time and space, blasted towards Li Anping, who was so tiny that he could not turn into light and leave. But with Li Anping's courage, facing the fist that hit him head-on, even if the fist was larger than 100 moons, how could he retreat? No need to photonize, let alone dodge. Li Anping showed a sneer on his face, and the next moment, countless zero-point energies in the void had already gathered towards his arms, enhancing the electromagnetic force in his body at an incredible speed. Li Anping was able to control the annihilation of positive and negative matter 2 years ago, and used this principle to perform a positron cannon, but now the Dionysus, or the great dark sky, facing him, is a monster that can also release the energy of matter to achieve the same effect as the annihilation reaction. In terms of the mass of matter, with the same means, Li Anping can never release more energy than the great dark sky, so he chose the vacuum zero-point energy, which is more efficient for him. But this is still just adding some power. For Li Anping now, each cycle will double, and the entire combat power will grow at 2x, which is his strongest weapon. When he returned to Earth, Li Anping alone was enough to adjust the orbit of a planet and change the gravity of the Earth. So how powerful can Li Anping be now, who is 2 to the power of 8 times stronger than he was then? In quantum theory, the coupling constant is used to characterize the strength of interaction. The coupling constant of the strong interaction force is 100 times that of the electromagnetic force, 100,000 times that of the weak interaction force, and 10 to the power of 40th times that of gravity. If a person can release all the strong interactions in each of his particles and still maintain his own existence, he will become a Superman, and each of his punches will be enough to tear the sky apart. At this moment, gravity, electromagnetic force, strong interaction force, and weak interaction force not only grow wildly under Li Anping's operation, but also break through their own scope of action, completely releasing this terrifying power. The particles that make up Li Anping's entire fist seem to have turned into a dense chaos at this moment. And the next moment, two fists, one large and one small, that are not on the same order of magnitude, have collided without any fancy. Time seems to be still at this moment, and space seems to be crumbling under this punch. When Dionysus received Li Anping's punch, he truly experienced what it meant to carry the weight of the earth and what it meant to have a fist as heavy as the earth. Just because Li Anping's punch was really heavier than 10 magic stars. Silently, the fist that had just been repaired had turned into the most basic particles under Li Anping's punch. Not only the fist, but under this truly earth-shattering force, the entire arm of the great dark sky disappeared, and even his entire body had a tendency to disintegrate under this force. And flew completely uncontrollably to the back of the body. And Li Anping still stood in the same place, except for the arm that had turned into its original state. The whole person looked unchanged. Ah, Dionysus's thought fluctuations turned into furious electric waves. The next second, countless flames rose from the back of the entire great dark sky. It was an antimatter explosion. Through the force of the antimatter explosion, the great dark sky, who was punched away by Li Anping, not only stopped retreating. He also rushed towards Li Anping in return. His body changed dramatically like a transformer, and he embraced Li Anping like a hug. At the same time, in Li Anping's eyes, countless gravity ripples and virtual particles rippled in the space, interfering with this piece of time and space to prevent him from escaping. How could Li Anping escape? He just sneered and watched the great dark sky transform into a planet-like existence, completely wrapping him up. According to the information given to Dionysus by the Chaos Tide, this move is called the Infernal Hell. It is a move created by those creatures called Buddhas to fight and seal the heavenly demon. The entire great dark sky is used as a cage to seal off the planetary area. In the vast square, Dionysus laughed loudly. Li Anping, this is the Infernal Hell. Here, you can't extract any vacuum zero-point energy, nor can you perform any unnatural energy conversion. The only thing you can rely on is your own body. After saying this, Dionysus was holding a magic wand more than 2 meters high, and slowly walked towards Li Anping's position. I admit that your strength is a little beyond my imagination. Although your energy is lower than mine, you can hurt the great dark sky with one punch. But here, you can't reproduce any supernatural reactions, and you can only have the original power of your body. Although I can't extract energy to release magic, my body can be strengthened by countless formations in the great dark sky. What Dionysus didn't say was that in order to maintain the infernal hell, the great dark sky itself could no longer make any attacks, otherwise how could he stand up and kill Li Anping directly from a distance? Let's fight like two warriors. At this point, Dionysus suddenly smiled and said, also, although this enclosed square is larger than the entire Mondo continent, I advise you not to run away. It will only reduce your low chance of winning. Li Anping showed a look of surprise on his face, and said with a bit of amusement, you want to fight with me? Dionysus snorted coldly and rushed towards Li Anping. I will let you know that your arrogance is the biggest reason for your defeat. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 434. Dionysus was seen holding a magic wand, and when he waved it, a series of after-images were left behind. He was spinning around Li Anping with a strange pace. Li Anping, if you think I am just a simple magician who is not good at close combat, you are wrong. There was a time when I pretended to be an ordinary mercenary, walked across the continent, and learned martial arts from various schools for more than 10 years. As he spoke, Dionysus' body was strengthened by the magic circle inside the great dark sky, and the magic wand rolled up the power of wind and thunder, pointing towards Li Anping's right shoulder. The power of the magic circle obtained by Dionysus was a means he had specially studied to enhance the body's physical strength by regulating the body's protein, red muscle, and adrenaline. It was a completely scientific method, unlike any supernatural power that violated the rules of this universe, and would not be banned by the infernal purgatory. The power of this blow has reached the limit of what human physical strength can reach, enough to overturn a tank in one go. With the magic wand weighing more than 200 kilograms, Dionysus believed that this would be enough to smash Li Anping's shoulder. But the next moment, the confident smile on his face suddenly choked, and he looked at Li Anping in front of him as if he was looking at a ghost. Li Anping's palm was like a steel plate, easily blocking the magic wand, making Dionysus's attack ineffective and even difficult to advance. Then, in Dionysus's shocked eyes, Li Anping directly grabbed his magic wand, broke the magic wand into two pieces with a little force, and then threw it back casually. With a sound of breaking through the air, the two pieces of the magic wand disappeared from Dionysus' sight in an instant, just like a supersonic plane. The whole process was like a primary school student constantly harassing an adult with toys, and then the adult directly grabbed the toys of the naughty child and threw them to a place invisible to the naked eye. The only difference is that the naughty child will cry. But Dionysus will not. Then Dionysus felt a flash in front of his eyes, and Li Anping had already grabbed his neck. Even if it was just relying on physical strength, the speed of the two was completely different. With the structure of human eyeballs, it is absolutely impossible to see Li Anping's body. Then Dionysus felt that his chin was like being pressed by a crane, and it made a crackling sound in Li Anping's palm, as if it would break at any time. Instinctively struggling, his fists kept hitting Li Anping, and his legs kept kicking the opponent's chest and abdomen. But it was useless. The opponent's body was like a piece of granite. Not only did the attack have no effect, but even with Dionysus's human physical strength, Li Anping didn't even have a slight vibration. He pinched Dionysus's chin, saw the other party's struggle, and said with interest, "Infernal purgatory." With a bang, Dionysus's whole body had Li Anping pinching his chin and hit the floor hard. Even though it was a very slight force for Li Anping, for Dionysus now, it meant that all the bones in his body were shattered and fractured, and the severe pain almost completely overwhelmed his consciousness. This monster, is he a human? How can a human body be so strong? This is simply a dragon in human skin. No, it is a million times stronger than a dragon. How can a human have such a body? There has never been a human with such a strong body on the magic continent. Shangtian has never given Dionysus information about Li Anping, his life, or his record. He fought with Li Anping twice, and always thought that the other party used energy to drive various moves. Who knew that under his human appearance, he was actually a monster's body? With a loud bang, Dionysus' knee was crushed by Li Anping's foot, and he himself fainted completely. Can only use power. With a clang, Li Anping kicked Dionysus' waist again. The opponent flew out like a ball. In mid-air, his internal organs had turned into a pool of blood and flesh. He also woke up in pain and screamed in mid-air. Practicing martial arts for more than 10 years. With a rumble, Li Anping left a huge pit on the ground. The whole person instantly caught up with Dionysus in mid-air, then grabbed one of the opponent's legs and swung one hand, like a windmill, swinging Dionysus's body around his body, and then poured it hard on the ground, crashing into a pool. A series of crackling sounds rang out, as if countless pieces of meat and bones were forcibly squeezed together. When Li Anping grabbed Dionysus's head and lifted him up, the opponent's consciousness was already blurred and his body had turned into a pile of rags. Li Anping smiled and said, "What is 1000-7? Okay, I said the above sentence." What Li Anping said was, "Is hand-to-hand combat fun?" Then he squeezed his palm slightly, and Dionysus's head was forcibly squeezed into a ball, like a crushed tomato, and countless white and red liquids splashed out. Li Anping was too lazy to block them, and just let them fall on his body and face. The next moment, the opponent's soul power came out of his body directly, but Li Enping only had time to take a bite, and the soul power disappeared as if it had teleported. Do you really have a backup method, you cowardly guy? It turned out that Dionysus was confident that he could teach Li Enping, who had lost his extraordinary power, a lesson with his powerful and superb martial arts. But as a mage, no matter how optimistic the situation was, he had prepared a backup plan. Obviously, this calmness and caution helped him save his life this time. When Dionysus stopped breathing, the anti-supernatural field of the infernal purgatory had stopped operating, and all supernatural powers that violated the laws of this universe appeared on Dionysus and Li Enping again. So Dionysus's pre-prepared 10th level magic reincarnation technique of the undead system was instantly activated, and his soul was directly dragged into the long-prepared backup body by a means of quantum transmission. As soon as he entered the body, he let out a thunderous roar. The raging flames and the tortured fearful heart all turned into angry thought waves, rushing towards Li Enping. Li Enping, I will pull out every bone in your body. I want every piece of meat on your body to feed the dogs. Dionysus was answered by Li Enping's thunderous punch. The four forces in the universe, strong interaction, electromagnetic force, weak interaction, and gravity, were once again released by Li Enping. Like a cosmic monster that crushed everything, it hit the ground of the endless purgatory with an irresistible violence. A fist that exceeds the speed of sound is called a supersonic fist by Li Enping. A fist that can hit atoms and cause nuclear fusion is called an atomic explosion fist by Li Enping. And this punch now can be called a quantum vacuum fist. It is the source, essence, and foundation of all forces in the universe. It is a fist of creation that affects the macroscopic from the microscopic, and creates the constant from the impermanent. With one punch, the entire dark sky's endless purgatory collapsed. On the surface of the dark sky, it was like a strange beast drilled out, turning large pieces of matter into particles, floating in the vacuum of the universe. A terrifying hole more than 30 times the size of Tianjin appeared at the bottom of the dark sky. Dionysus, if you don't have any new tricks, I will end this battle. Ah, in the roar of Dionysus, the dark sky has returned to its original appearance. The part of the body destroyed by Li Enping's quantum vacuum fist is gradually recovering under the amplification of endless energy. 6 arms that are thousands of kilometers long and can span the entire continent are seen surrounding the space around Li Enping. The next moment, the colorful halo behind the dark sky's head flickered, and all parts of his body became brighter and brighter. The whole body of the dark sky seemed to bring infinite light at this moment. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 435. When the white light completely enveloped Li Enping's body, a unique change began to take effect on him. The entire natural world is composed of 10 dimensions. And our universe is a 4-dimensional space-time. Simply put, 1 dimension is a point, 2 dimensions are a line, 3 dimensions are a 3-dimensional space with length, width, and height, and 4 dimensions are based on length, width, and height, and time is added. 2-dimensional space has only length and width, no thickness. Therefore, all 2-dimensional creatures cannot see the full picture of 3-dimensional creatures. In their eyes, humans are a collection of countless planes, and they can only observe one of them forever, which looks like a person cut into countless pieces. Similarly, humans, as 3-dimensional creatures, cannot see the full picture of 4-dimensional creatures. Just as 2-dimensional creatures can only see a certain plane of a certain human, humans can only see 4-dimensional creatures in a certain time period, and the collection of all time periods is his whole. They are a whole rather than countless individuals. 2-dimensional creatures can move in length and width at will. Once a 2-dimensional creature moves in height, whether it is 1 meter up or 1 meter down, it jumps from one plane to another. For other 2-dimensional creatures, he disappears. Similarly, humans, as three-dimensional creatures, can move in the measurement of length, width, and height. If humans can move in the measurement of time, then whether they move forward 1 second or move backward 1 second, they will disappear to the people around them. If there are really four-dimensional creatures, then they are a kind of super life that jumps out of the time limit and does not abide by the law of causality. It is also a kind of life that the human brain can never intuitively imagine. And now, when the whole body of the great dark sky is covered by white light, he temporarily has four-dimensional vision. Everything about Li Anping appeared in front of him. Li Anping's birth, elementary school, junior high school, university, after getting the ability, the battle in Zhongdu, the battle in Emerald City, the battle in Tianjing, how he became the behind-the-scenes master of Daxia, followed by the battle with Pluto, the battle with Xinjun, the battle with Hui, and the battle with the Star Alliance. The battle with Seagram, countless times of saving the country, saving the world. The next moment, the finger of the great dark sky flicked gently, as if a three-dimensional creature moved a two-dimensional creature from one plane to another. At this moment, as the finger of the great dark sky flicked, Li Anping's figure was like a movie playback, and his body began to retreat continuously, retreating in the past direction. In just a few seconds, his body has turned back to the appearance of a college student, then a high school student, and then a junior high school student. The whole process was all controlled by the inherent program in the great dark sky. For this attack called the bright glazed fire, Dionysus could not understand the principle at all. If he used the four-dimensional vision himself, I am afraid his brain would go crazy. That is not a world that can be understood by human inherent thinking. But he only needs to know one thing: as long as he is covered by the white bright glazed fire, the target will be forcibly pulled back to the past state, regressing like time reversing, until it becomes the first particle that makes up his body and completely disappears between heaven and earth. As the ultimate weapon of the great dark sky, this is a means specifically used to deal with those super life forms in the universe that are capable of destroying planets and civilizations. The energy consumed is also an astronomical figure. As Li Anping's body changes, the part of the great dark sky that has become light gradually dissipates in the universe. After using up all the energy, Dionysus directly ignites the material that makes up the great dark sky and uses the method of mass energy conversion to replenish energy. Until Li Anping turned into a boy about 1.4 meters tall wearing a primary school uniform, the entire great dark sky was left with only one arm and the part above the chest, and the body comparable to the size of an asteroid had been consumed in the process of casting the bright glazed fire just now. Dionysus controlled the great dark sky to stop attacking and exhale gently from his mouth. The bright glazed fire consumes too much energy too quickly. But this is enough. The current Li Anping. As he said, he looked at the primary school student Li Anping in the void, and a strange feeling suddenly appeared in his mind. It was still that annoying face, and that arrogant, contemptuous look, which made Dionysus hate it from the bottom of his heart. This guy is still so annoying. After becoming a little ghost at this moment, Dionysus suddenly reacted and looked at the elementary school student Li Anping in front of him with some doubts. No, in the universe, he should have died immediately. Although Dionysus could not fully understand quantum mechanics, relativity, and the four-dimensional attack of the great dark sky, he knew that the universe was a vacuum and ordinary people would become a mummy directly after entering. But seeing the elementary school student Li Anping now, everything looks normal, and there is no sign of mummy. And this normal appearance is the biggest abnormality. Damn, could he have survived in the universe when he was 7 or 8 years old? What race is he born from? In the light glass fire just now, only the great dark sky observed Li Anping through four-dimensional vision. Dionysus still knew nothing about most of Li Anping's past. Coupled with his performance in the endless purgatory just now, he began to doubt Li Anping's race. At this moment, a thought wave was emitted from Li Anping's body, sweeping towards the great dark sky, and was received by Dionysus in just 1/100th of a second. It's over? I thought you would turn me into a sperm or a pile of protein. Dionysus looked at the elementary school student Li Enping in disbelief. How is it possible? Could it be that you? Interesting four-dimensional attack, but it's not enough to kill me. Li Enping pinched his tender little hands and said, the reverse or downstream of the regional time can only kill me once now. I am a multiple superposition of a certain possibility in space and time. Whether my body is left with only a certain particle or turned back into a pile of protein, my ability will not change at all except for your visual effect. This kind of attack is no different from slicing me for me, it can only change my appearance. Unless you restart the timeline of the entire universe, you can really kill the past me. But in that case, the energy required is enough for you to create and destroy millions of universes, and you don't need to go through so much trouble to kill me. Then a cold light flashed in Li Enping's eyes. The whole body was illuminated, and it appeared on the head of the great dark sky in the next second. His little feet stepped on the head that looked like a small moon, and he said coldly, don't you understand? If you don't understand, forget it, I'll send you on your way. The next moment, with his right foot stomping hard, the head of the great dark sky was like being hit by an invisible giant hammer, and suddenly sank down, and a hole as big as a crater appeared. In the multiverse, a place called Xianzhou by the locals. A carriage was heading towards the distant Kunlun Mountains. In the carriage were Shangtian, Kudia, and Yexiao. Among them, Shangtian was lying on the bed with his eyes closed, and Yexiao was reading an ancient book non-stop. Only Kudia looked impatient. He looked at the two of them, then looked out the window, and finally couldn't help but said, why do we have to take a carriage? How long will it take to get there? If it goes on like this, Li Enping will achieve the ultimate. Have you forgotten the agreement between us? Of course I haven't forgotten. Shangtian closed his eyes and said, but this world is much more dangerous than you think. If you casually take out something beyond common sense, it will cause unnecessary trouble. What about Li Enping? Are you really not going to take care of it? Li Enping. When this name was mentioned, Shangtian finally opened his eyes. Do you know? That time in the magic world, I really wanted to kill Li Enping. But I failed. Although I don't want to admit it, Li Enping is indeed not something we can kill head-on now. No, Li Enping is so powerful that it is stupid to fight him head-on. So I gave up confronting him head-on. Xiaotian Yexiao closed the ancient book and looked at Shangtian with some reluctance. This boy, who was less than 3 years old, was under pressure far beyond the imagination of ordinary people at such a young age. It's okay, uncle yet. I've figured it out. I won't confront him head-on again, Shang Tianyi said. Next, let those demons play with him first. After one kick, Li Enping punched the great dark sky under his feet again. His tender palms contained the most terrifying power in the world. After 3 consecutive quantum vacuum punches, the entire body of the great dark sky had completely disintegrated, and in the huge explosion, it turned into various debris flying in all directions in the universe. But under the control of Dionysus, the debris emitted an astonishing white light at the same time, turning into countless antimatter bombs. Shangtian lay quietly on the bed in the carriage, and said in an extremely calm tone, there is no chance of winning in a head-on confrontation. No, it should be said that no matter what possibility, as long as it is resolved by fighting in the end, there is no possibility of success. In the entire multiverse, the only one who can defeat Li Enping is Li Enping himself. The violent energy directly engulfed Li Enping. But just like the sea water, even though these energies filled the surroundings of Li Enping, they could not hurt him at all. Instead, Li Enping directly absorbed part of the energy and transformed his body back to the original adult form. Such a pure large-scale explosion is far less threatening to Li Enping than concentrating the power on one point. The next moment, the strong arm had turned into omnipresent light, piercing through the violent energy flow and hitting the fleeing Dionysus. Dionysus just wanted to open the portal, and his whole body was torn into tens of thousands of pieces by the light-speed fist. Only Li Anping can defeat Li Anping. We can't. The gods of this world can't. The demons of the White Continent may be able to gain the upper hand for a while, but they will only fail in the end. Shang Tian's eyes flashed with a coldness that was totally inconsistent with his age, so don't even think about defeating Li Anping in battle. The only thing we can do is let him go to his own destruction. The end of evolution is death. When you truly become a god, the part of Li Anping that is a human will completely perish. After Dionysus' body was torn apart, it instantly turned into a ball of gas. He didn't care about Li Anping behind him and desperately drilled towards the space door in front. This monster. This ghost. This damn guy. I want to stay away from this world, away from this universe. I never want to meet this guy again. In a state of fear, Dionysus went into the portal, but before he could calm down, he found something wrong. Where is this place? Dionysus looked up and around, and cold sweat kept flowing from his head. Li Anping's cold voice came from all directions, "Welcome to my world." Dionysus immediately turned his head and looked behind him, but found that the portal that sent him here had disappeared. It turned out that the portal he had just entered was the portal opened by Li Anping. Li Anping opened this portal in front of the portal opened by Dionysus, and the location of the teleportation was his stomach. In a panic, Dionysus went in without carefully distinguishing. In the void, Li Anping slowly closed the portal opened by Dionysus like a zipper. In his stomach, Dionysus, who had turned into gas, rushed left and right, and began to struggle frantically, but felt that his body was being melted and swallowed every minute and every second. When did you learn to open a portal? It's just a simple copy of physical phenomena, Li Anping said calmly. Whether it's magic or anything else, I can do everything you can do, and I can only do it better than you. In Li Anping's stomach, no matter how Dionysus struggled, he couldn't get out. No matter what magic he used, it was immediately reversed and offset by Li Anping using the same method. Amid screams and waves of soul-tearing pain, the demigod Dionysus, the strongest of Mondo, finally disappeared completely from this world. To be continued, please search for Ocean Literature. The novels are better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Go. Chapter 436. When Li Anping and others were on Devil's second planet, watching the great dark sky slowly appear, all the live broadcasts on the entire Mondo continent could see this scene. However, after Li Anping caught Dionysus's punch, and the two of them went to the universe together, away from the magic star, the picture turned into a snowflake. A line of words appeared in the sky, indicating that Li Anping and Dionysus temporarily went to the depths of the void to fight. In Rockland Square, the young wizard clenched his fists. Even though Li Anping and the great dark sky could no longer be seen on the screen, he was still excited and stared at the screen in the sky. Even his voice was trembling. "Sir Dionysus, he is really here. Will he win? He will definitely win." The older wizard beside him was also a little excited. "Did you see that huge magic puppet? This must be the weapon created by Sir Dionysus to deal with the evil god. The reason why you have been late is that you must have made the puppet in time." The young wizard continued, "And Sir Dionysus is here now, which means he has the confidence to win. And that puppet is so great that it is simply a miracle that surpasses all magic devices." The same scenes happened in various places in the Mondo continent. Countless mages were inspired by this scene, especially the larger size than the Mondo continent, which far exceeded all mages' imagination of magic and gave them confidence in magic. Because no one could imagine how Li Anping could defeat such a powerful puppet. More than half an hour later, on the floating battleship, The few stars that suddenly appeared in the sky just now must be the battle between His Majesty and his men. What an amazing power! Yanbei looked up at the sky. He sighed, Dionysus is really amazing. It's a pity that he chose the wrong opponent. He had bad luck. Jingguang said, challenging His Majesty is a matter of seeking death. It's no different from suicide. SpecialAbilities on the side did not speak, but just monitored the situation of the entire town of Mondo continent. However, apart from the increasing number of people watching the live broadcast, no accidents have occurred. Bai Xing sat cross-legged on the ground. Waves of white thoughts emerged from the 720 acupoints on his body, wrapping his whole body. Seeing that he was practicing seriously, he seemed to not care about the outcome of the battle in the endless distance above his head. At this moment, a white light flashed, and Li Anping had appeared in front of everyone. Your Majesty. No need to be polite. Li Anping raised his palm, and saw countless particles generated and combined in his hand, and finally turned into a storage disk. He said lightly, Dionysus has been solved. I stored the battle record in it, you can play it first. The so-called battle record, battle screen, is also stored in digital format. Li Anping can naturally record his visual, auditory, and other memories, and even with his computing power, it is not difficult to create some pictures out of thin air like making CG. Like this battle video with Dionysus, he tried to use a third-party perspective to make it. These videos will first be played on the entire Mondo continent to completely destroy the confidence and spirit of the magicians, in order to facilitate the rule of the earth. Secondly, these videos will be like the Battle of Tianjing and the battle with the demon Seagram, and will be collected by the Earth government as a teaching material for the Battle of the Ability and research materials on science and technology. Especially the weapons used by Dionysus through the Great Dark Sky. There are also several methods used by Li Anping. Except for the last shot of eating Dionysus, Li Anping will explain and illustrate the general principles of the others. I understand. SpecialAbilities took the storage box from Li Anping and handed it to his adjutant, asking them to start playing it on the air screen of the entire Mondo continent. Bai Xing, Jingguang, Yanbei, and other Earth soldiers also looked at this information with curiosity. Although they believed that His Majesty would win. However, the size of the Great Dark Sky body made Dionysus's momentum very amazing, making them very curious about how His Majesty solved the opponent. But after seeing it, they realized that they had greatly underestimated Dionysus's power. The opponent was 100 times stronger than they imagined. Photon flow, gravity wave, endless purgatory, bright glass fire, the power of these tricks is more terrifying than one. If they knew these strengths of Dionysus before the war, they would probably worry about whether Li Anping could defeat the opponent. But now, watching the video of Li Anping easily defeating Dionysus, they were shocked. When they saw that Li Anping, who looked like an elementary school student, smashed the half-body of the Dark Sky, who was stronger than the entire continent, with a few punches, all the Earth soldiers exclaimed. A kind of pride belonging to the Earthlings, as well as the unprecedented sense of security that Li Anping brought them, the feeling of being fearless and invincible as long as Li Anping was behind them, quietly rose from their hearts. Even Bai Xing, Jingguang, and others had long expected that Li Anping would win, but seeing the video in front of them, they still felt a kind of blood boiling. But unlike the excitement of the Earthlings, the natives on the Mondo continent had a different feeling when they saw the video played on the air screen. First, when they watched the video, they didn't know that Dionysus had been defeated and killed. So many mages cheered and looked forward to Li Anping's death when they saw the photon streamer drowning Li Anping, and when they saw the gravity ripples tearing Li Anping apart, etc. And when Li Anping beat Dionysus in the endless purgatory and was hit by the bright glass fire without any damage, their hearts were all in turmoil. At the end of the screen, they saw a video that was modified by Li Anping, and Dionysus' body and soul were all killed by Li Anping's punch. When this picture was broadcast, Countless mages on the Mondo continent turned pale and looked at the air screen in the sky in disbelief, as if their whole life had been shattered by someone. In the square of Krolin, the young mage knelt on the ground, staring at the still picture in the sky with lifeless eyes. There was a buzzing sound in his head. This was an impeccable war of the century. Whether it was the dark sky controlled by Dionysus or the unparalleled power displayed by Li Enping, it was far beyond his imagination. But this made him even more desperate. Even if Dionysus had the power to destroy the entire Mondo continent, and the demigod with a magic level that he could never reach in his lifetime, he seemed so vulnerable in front of Li Enping. So even if these mages kept studying magic, would it be possible to defeat Li Enping? Whether it was him or the middle-aged mage behind him, their eyes were all dim. A few months later, the middle-aged mage dispersed his magic power, gave up the path of magic, and became an ordinary old farmer. He died of a heart attack more than 10 years later. Even before he died, none of his neighbors knew that he had been a noble mage in the past. After more than half a year of decadence, the young mage joined the magic school established by the Earth government and embarked on the path of pursuing truth and becoming stronger. This was also the final choice of most mages on the Mondo continent. As for ordinary people, it is difficult for them to see the meaning of many tricks in the video, but they know one thing very well, that is, the power of the gods far exceeds that of the wizards. The whole world will be ruled by Li Enping, the king of the gods, and many grains and foods will be provided to them at very low or even free prices. They just need to obey orders. In addition, the Earth government will build primary schools in every town and village in the Mondo continent in the coming days. In addition to improving the cultural level of the locals, it is also to select children with magical talents from all the Mondo people. The parents of these children will receive a sum of money, and these children with magical talents will be sent to magic schools opened on Earth for training since childhood. They will follow the wizards who surrendered to the Earth and study the magic teaching materials compiled by Li Enping himself. They can choose to return to the Mondo continent during the winter and summer vacations every year. And staying on the modern life of the Earth for a long time will make their every move after growing up no doubt like the Earth people, and completely Earth-like. As long as they can pass the graduation magic exam and thesis review, they will get a temporary residence permit on Earth. Then, if they can pass a series of regulations and procedures, such as making great contributions to the government, they will get 30 points, and inventing new magic will add 5 to 20 points. The higher the score, the higher the authority, and the closer the rights they can enjoy to Earthlings, and they can even get a real Earth identity in the end, or bring their family members far away in Mondo continent to live here. For the locals of Mondo continent, Earth is the realm of gods and heavens in their cognition. Countless people are looking forward to their children being selected and taking themselves there. Of course, in addition to children with magical talents, some wizards who have already had abilities in the past can also join the Earth government and be assigned to different armies or ability units after passing a series of political reviews and academic tests. If they do not violate any discipline or law in the next 2 to 4 years and are willing to stay in the Earth Army to continue to spread the gospel, they can become an Earth citizen. But even so, the number of people who can enter Earth on Mondo continent does not exceed tens of thousands, but with the establishment of primary schools in various places, this number will increase. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels are better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xiong Lang Go. Chapter 437. It has been a while since the complete unification of Mondo continent, and Bai Xing is still leading the fleet to continue attacking the remaining 2 continents on Magic Star. Now, more than half a year has passed since the attack of Seagram. According to the information in Seagram's mind, his tribe, that is, the evil god tribe where the Red River King among the 12 demons belongs, will send people to the location of the boundary gate on the White Land again in half a year at the earliest and a year at the longest. All the high-level people on Earth who know this news are like machines with springs wound up, and they are developing everything that can enhance their strength. and the technology of the Earth, especially the military technology, has developed rapidly because of Li Enping. First of all, there are countless scientific and technological materials compiled by the God King, the Red Queen, and Li Enping. These materials provide the most correct theoretical guidance for scientists on Earth. Secondly, after the entire Earth was unified, the barriers between countries, cultures, and groups were eliminated. There was no longer any technology that wasted money and time on repeated research. All research institutes, laboratories, and scientific research institutes were all managed by the Royal Academy of Sciences. All research, design, and manufacturing plans were planned by Li Enping every minute and every second. In addition, Li Enping himself also participated in the manufacture and design of various new weapons for the Earth Army. With the existence of nano-worms and infinite computing power, his efficiency was even higher than that of all scientists in the world combined. In just a few months, the explosive development of human military power and technology has surpassed all past history. Every day, more than 10 floating aircraft carriers are launched around the world, equipped with plasma shields, force field armor, antimatter engines, gauze cannons, plasma cannons and other super tech equipment. Floating aircraft carriers have become one of the main equipment for the Earth Army's ground operations. In addition, the fortress railguns, floating turrets, and interceptors surrounding the periphery of the Crossing Gate space station have turned the entire space station into a death zone within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. Inside the space station, the newly produced Explorer 2 mechanical infantry has become the main force. They are all operated by the central intelligent brain of the space station and have faster reactions than anyone else. Scanning and aiming through infrared, thermal radiation, electromagnetic waves and other means, they release 255 mm depleted uranium bombs, plasma weapons, plasma flames. In terms of killing efficiency and cost effectiveness, they are higher than various human infantry and ability warriors. Similar configurations also appeared in the White Land. Countless unmanned reconnaissance aircraft, nano-worms, mechanical infantry and other devices have monitored the entire area of 10,000 kilometers near the boundary gate. The real defense force of mankind is all deployed within 100 kilometers around the boundary gate. Floating aircraft carriers, defender robots, spider tanks, and various war machines are constantly coming down from the production line and onto the battlefield of the White Land. Human soldiers are considered precious resources, and are all cultivated by Li Enping as the highest combat power. Power armor, force field armor. The interstellar armor, which is a combination of various exoskeleton armors such as nano armor, has completed the replacement of all capable warriors. The next step is to replace all soldiers in the army and complete the replacement of all ordinary people. This set of individual armor is more than 2 meters and 5 meters high, weighs a total of 1.2 tons, and combines hundreds of high-tech equipment. It has power beyond human imagination in the past. The power system alone is divided into antimatter energy tubes that can use Earth technology, nuclear fusion energy furnaces, and magic elements that can launch magic from level 1 to 8, that is, vacuum zero-point energy extraction magic patterns. The excellent life support system allows the wearer to survive in various environments such as deserts, seabeds, moons, space, volcanoes, etc. With a fully covered force field armor shell, it can withstand the bombardment of the main gun of the floating warship for 10 minutes before all energy is consumed. Each interstellar armor is equipped with a quantum intelligent brain, which can assist the user in combat, and with their assistance, the user can also command the nano-worms carried in the armor to freely assemble various cold weapons, communication equipment, long-range firepower and other things. In addition, there are various laser swords, high-frequency daggers, phase transfer shields, gauze rifles, high-energy particle rifles, micro-tactical thermonuclear bombs, infrasonic weapons, and other equipment, which turn each interstellar armor into a mobile arsenal. coupled with the abilities of various ability users and the magic programs they modulate on the magic patterns to match their abilities. Basically, the stronger the strength, the stronger the combat power after wearing interstellar armor. Each such super soldier can match a legion in ground warfare. In addition to these ground forces, the first sublight-speed spacecraft of mankind has also begun flight experiments. This means that mankind is about to completely enter the space age. Once the mass production of spacecraft is truly realized, it will be of great benefit to fighting demons in space stations and expanding the strategic depth of mankind in this war. However, most civilians still know nothing about the rapidly growing strength of the human army. In their impression, the so-called White Land and demons are still just some gossip and rumors. As for war, it is just a distant term for the time being. Earth, on the new continent of Daxia created by Li Enping. The entire new Daxia has been completely covered with silver metal. Countless metal devices have formed various energy lines and defense systems. In the center of the continent, there is a huge gun muzzle with a radius of more than 120 kilometers. This largest gun muzzle in human history, when viewed from above, looks like a bottomless black abyss. Li Enping floated in the depths of the abyss and personally adjusted the structure of the muzzle with the nano-worms. This is the product of Li Enping's second phase of the Earth transformation plan. It is the ultimate weapon for making small gamma-ray bursts based on the principle of stellar collapse explosion. Gamma-ray bursts are the most intense explosions in the universe. The energy released in a few minutes is equivalent to the sum of trillions of years of sunlight. The gamma-ray cannon made by Li Enping on Earth is naturally not so powerful at present. And because of the excessive energy consumption, the energy stored in a month is only enough for this cannon to make a gamma-ray burst of 1/1000th of a second. But the power is enough to destroy any planet in the solar system. Li Enping will also create 6 similar super weapons in other locations on Earth to slowly realize the goal of transforming the Earth into an interstellar fortress and the eternal utopia of mankind. It is precisely because of the amazing power of the gamma-ray burst that Li Enping will personally modulate it. After all, if this super weapon is not carefully used, it may even blow up the entire Earth. Just as Li Enping was floating quietly in the barrel, the doctor far away in the Federation began today's report. Your Majesty, the clone's life support system has been tested. The so-called clone's life support system is a system that Li Enping created for the Queen's clones to survive for a long time in the absence of nano-worms or when the nano-worms lose contact. Because the premise of this system is the loss of nano-worm support, Li Enping handed the final test to the doctor. Li Enping asked, "How is the situation?" With sufficient artificial nutrients, the clone can basically survive to the maximum lifespan of the body, which is 150 to 180 years. However, if the support of nano-worms is lost for a long time, the side effect of the clone's body shrinking will be aggravated. The doctor talked for a few minutes and suddenly found that Li Enping had not said a word. He asked, "Your Majesty, are you still there?" "Your Majesty," the doctor looked at the communicator in front of him. Everything was working normally. There should be a problem with the communication. Is he distracted? The doctor frowned and thought, it seems to be getting worse. At first, it was only once or twice a week, and each time it lasted only 1 second, but now this phenomenon is becoming more and more frequent. It happens almost every 2 or 3 days. The most serious one was a distraction of 5 seconds. This is simply incredible for the doctor who deeply understands Li Enping's current life state. With Your Majesty's computing power, even if you manage the entire Earth now, you should not be distracted. This is as ridiculous as a 32-core host crashing when playing Minesweeper. Just when the doctor was thinking this, Li Enping's voice came over. He said coldly, "I know, I will fix these problems within 3 days, and you will do the next test 3 days later." Li Enping and the doctor will naturally conduct multiple tests on this system that is related to the safety of the entire human race. After hearing Li Enping's answer, the doctor was silent for a while, and finally mustered up the courage to say, "Your Majesty, were you distracted just now?" Li Anping said lightly, "Nothing, just some gamma-ray parameter modifications distracted my attention." The doctor felt that this must not be the real reason, but Li Anping didn't say it. He could only keep this question in his heart. But in this way, as a very curious person, perhaps the most curious among all level 5 ability users, the answer to this question is like a kitten hidden in his heart, tickling him very much. He could only talk about another thing. "By the way, Your Majesty, she told me that Miss Anna asked us to remind you that there are still 52 hours before the wedding. She asked you to pay attention to the time and not work too late." I know. Li Anping nodded. He naturally knew why Anna did that. This was not the first time he was reminded. Although he did not need this kind of reminder at all, he could fully understand the other party's mood. As a woman, the other party was naturally very nervous about her wedding. So doing these repetitive and useless things has a good comfort and calming effect on Anna and Li Qian. And as the person being reminded, Li Anping can also feel a hint of warmth representing happiness in his heart. To be continued, please search for Ocean literature. The novel is better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xianglang Go. Chapter 438. In the palace, Li Anping sat in the study. The main construction of the gamma-ray cannon had been completed, so he returned to the palace and completed the remaining details by remotely commanding the nano-worms. At the same time, he also turned more attention to another task. From time to time, a stream of light flashed in his eyes, and his entire attention was attracted by the data in his mind. When he devoured Dionysus, he downloaded Dionysus's memory like Seagram, the clone Shangtian and the Red Queen. But unlike the memories of the other people, although Dionysus's memory is larger and more complicated, there is always a part that cannot be read by Li Anping. That is the origin of the great dark sky he created. This technology cannot be found in all of Dionysus's memories, and its technical level has completely surpassed all the magic developed by Dionysus himself. Li Anping searched through all of Dionysus's memories from childhood to adulthood, and there was no data about the great dark sky. Is the only possibility in this difficult to interpret memory? In Dionysus memory data, there is a memory that Li Anping has always found difficult to decipher. In theory, this is impossible. With Li Anping's computing power, deciphering human memory is not much different from listening to a song. But Dionysus' recent memory has become pure chaos. Yes, it is pure chaos, garbled code, like the ravings of a madman, which is completely difficult to interpret with any human language or thinking. To be specific, it is like someone rolled his head around a keyboard and left a few lines of text on the screen. During this period, I have tried 1039244872839092 decryption methods, but I still can't decipher this chaotic memory data. Dionysus can't do this. If he can do this, he will be more than just the strength he showed in battle. And the technical details shown by the great dark sky, the style is completely different from the Mondo continent. Are there other enemies or races behind him? Li Anping narrowed his eyes. If he could not decipher the technical data of the great dark sky, it meant that Li Anping could not know the origin of the great dark sky. Thinking of Dionysus's chaotic memory, Li Anping could not help but frown again. It was something completely different from any existing encryption algorithm on Earth. It was as if no matter what encryption algorithm, there would be a set of its own rules, such as after a series of calculations. It became even some algorithms called chaotic algorithms have internal rules. And the memory in front of him was like pure garbled code. Li Anping tried various rules and relied on powerful computing power to perform exhaustive calculations, but still could not get any meaningful results. But Li Anping knew that no matter how stupid Dionysus was, his memory could not be garbled. This could only mean that the other party used a technology that was completely different from the scientific system on Earth. An algorithm without rules and truly in chaos at all times. Early morning. Tianjin. West Folding Center. Olivia slowly walked out of the folding gate, and behind him was Bartok, who was also dressed as a medieval noble. The two men were handsome and the woman was gorgeous, and they were both wearing clothes similar to those of the Western continent in the Middle Ages. As soon as they appeared outside the folding gate, they attracted a lot of attention. Some citizens even took out their mobile phones to take pictures. The two looked at the crowds around them nervously, the crowded hall, and the buildings that were more gorgeous and wider than the palace castle, and they seemed a little overwhelmed. At this time, a young man in a blue and white uniform walked towards them. He looked at their clothes and said, "You are Olivia and Bartok, right?" "Yes, sir, I am Olivia, and he is Bartok." Olivia, with beautiful blonde hair, looked like a princess of a certain country, and her voice sounded more like singing. However, their faces still showed a hint of restraint unique to young people. Wang Ke smiled and said, "This is your first time in Tianjin, right? Go on." After that, he threw two silver white rings to Olivia and Bartok. "This is the login device of Xianwang. I have entered your identities in advance. I also recharged some money for you." Wang Ke asked, "By the way, your previous training course introduced the use of Xianwang, right?" "Yes." Bartok nodded heavily, his eyes looking at the ring in his hand with a curious light, and then slowly put the ring on his index finger. Xianwang is the most basic infrastructure of the heaven. It is needed for buying and selling, transmission, and identity recognition. Bartok recited the introduction of Xianwang in the training class. He and Olivia were representatives selected from the Mondo Avenue to attend Li Anping's wedding this time. Originally, Wang Ke was an adjutant under Xiu Umei, and it was impossible for him to personally participate in this kind of reception work. But he stayed in Tianjin to help Xiu Umei with his work. So he did not participate in the War of the Magic Continent. He was very curious about the people and things over there, so he took a day to come here in person. "Then follow me." Wang Ke turned around and led the two of them to another warp hall. Olivia and her companions followed with some restraint, from crossing the boundary gate, through the space station, to teleporting to Tianjin using the jump gate at the moon base, whether it was a spaceship larger than a castle, or a huge weapon made of metal, or the space station that forever floats in the sky. What she sees and hears along the way completely overturns her worldview. At this moment, Wang Ke suddenly turned around and asked, "Oh, by the way, you haven't had breakfast yet." Without waiting for the two of them to answer, he turned in the opposite direction. "Let's go, I'll take you there first." "Have breakfast." Wang Ke took the two of them into a restaurant in the center. A place like the Jump Center, where people come and go every day, is naturally an excellent location. People coming and going also need food, drink, and daily necessities, so many corridors here have been rented out as restaurants or supermarkets. I saw Wang Ke walking up to a screen, clicking on the screen, and said, "Just choose the food here. When you choose to pay, just ask him to take a look at the ring and the money will be automatically deducted." After saying that, he saw Wang Ke click on the name of a noodle, and then the introduction of the noodle screen popped up. He clicked to buy directly, then put the ring into the scanning port on the left side of the screen and scanned it. Since Xianwang appeared and began to help humans control jump doors and other home appliances, in the past month, Xianwang has successively opened the function of connecting to banks. Everyone can use Xianwang to replace bank cards, credit cards, and cash. Xianwang has become the latest and most efficient payment method. Whether you want to buy something, pass through a jump gate, restaurant, or entertainment venue, you only need to scan it with your ring when paying. If you want to give money to others, or if the other party uses a ring to charge money, just touch the two rings and the money can be transferred to others through consciousness. As for security, Li Anping personally monitors every corner of Xianwang. There are no security issues at all. Since Xianwang launched electronic currency, due to the credit of Li Anping and the Earth government himself, the cash usage rate of the entire human society has begun to gradually decrease. By the way, apart from taking dictation, you know how to read, right? Olivia nodded. We learned some common words. Wang Ke pointed to the row of screens next to him and said, I have deposited 20,000 in each of your accounts. You can use it yourself. I will wait for you at my seat. Then Olivia and Bartok also walked to the screen and chose their own food. Then they arrived next to Wang Ke's seat, waiting for the food delivery robot to deliver the ordered food to you. While Wang Ke was slurping noodles, he briefly introduced the earth to Olivia and Bartok. Fast food restaurants like this are all about high quality, low price, and speed. The food is synthesized in advance. There is no real person in the whole store, and the taste is very average. Olivia took a few bites of the pork chop and omelette rice she ordered, but felt that the food here was 100 times more delicious than the food on the Mondo continent. In Wang Ke's mouth, it turned out to be just average. Bartok on the side also had a similar feeling, especially the ordering and delivery methods here, which he found extremely novel and interesting. He couldn't even imagine that this food was synthesized by a machine. Wang Ke continued, when I have time, I will take you to a real restaurant for a meal, with real service and real chefs. It is much more delicious than these synthetic fast food. Alas, but now everyone has money, more people are having fun all day long, fewer people are willing to work hard, and there are far fewer restaurants than before. The original food stalls are no longer visible. What Wang Ke is talking about is also a problem currently occurring in human society. Due to excess productivity, all human beings can live a very happy life without worrying about food and clothing, even if they don't work for a lifetime. The speed of human spiritual progress cannot keep up with the rapid changes in technology, resulting in a large number of otakus and otakus who stay at home all day eating synthetic food, playing games, and surfing the internet. Because the hospital has free medical services for nano-worms provided by Li Enping, they never have to worry about their own health. The only thing they need to do is to take 15 minutes in the middle of playing the game and open the jump door at home. Teleport to the hospital, walk around the nanometers, and then come back to continue playing. But now some people are too lazy to even do such a thing, preferring to apply for remote treatment online and wait for hours or days. This situation also attracted the attention of Li Enping and the Earth government. Li Enping's plan is to advance the opening of Xianwang, while accelerating social development again, while also giving people on Earth more goals and choices. And the information about the White Land has gradually changed from gossip and urban rumors to leaked revelations. Li Enping has decided to announce the news about the demons to all humans on Earth after the new year this year, that is, after the Xianwang is fully opened. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 439. After finishing breakfast, Wang Ke simply took the two of them to a nearby clothing store to buy clothes. It is also a clothing store without salespersons. After entering the changing room, everyone can choose a variety of clothes. There will be a mechanical mouth in the changing room to spit out the clothes directly for customers to try on. Olivia walked into the changing room and heard a female electronic voice, "Dear customer, the body shape data will be measured now. Please do not move at will to avoid errors." If she hadn't received training on Earth knowledge in advance on the Mondo continent, Olivia would have really thought there was a woman talking here, and would have been worried that someone was hiding somewhere to watch her change clothes. But now Olivia won't have such thoughts. She knows that this should be using some kind of technology to store the sound. So she followed the female voice's prompts and stood still. Soon she saw several green rays of light sweeping across her body repeatedly, and in the blink of an eye, her body shape data was listed on the electronic screen in front of her. Then the screen turned, and countless various costumes and their pictures appeared on the screen for Olivia to choose from. It was dazzling to see so many, which she had never seen before. Some were gorgeous, some were dignified, or some were sexy. Olivia's eyes immediately lit up. The materials and styles of the clothes here were much more than those on the Mondo continent. Half an hour later, Bartok had already changed into a t-shirt and jeans, and was sitting boredly at the door of the store, waiting with Wonka for Olivia, who was still trying on clothes. While waiting, he said to Wonka apologetically, "Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't expect Olivia to spend so long and keep you waiting. How about I go and hurry him up?" "It's okay." "Wait, pretty girl, I don't care." Wonka looked at Bartok. The young man in front of him was considered an outstanding young man in terms of appearance and conversation. But every move he made was filled with flattery towards himself. Thinking about it, there is nothing we can do about it. The gap between Earth and Mundo is too big. Not to mention that the entire magic planet has been colonized by Earth, there is a huge gap in military force between the two, not to mention other aspects of technology, culture, education, and living standards. Even if Bartok doesn't show it, his inner inferiority will always affect his behavior to some extent. Wonka said with a smile, "I'm just relaxing and lazy today. His Majesty's wedding will be held the day after tomorrow. If I still work today, I won't even be able to eat." Bartok said somewhat cautiously, "Your Majesty's wedding must be very large, right? For people on the Mondo continent, the Earth is the world of gods. Lianping is the king of the gods." If Wonka hadn't taken the lead, it would have been impossible for him to discuss Lianping's matter in front of Wonka. "Of course," Wonka said, "not to mention the global broadcast, all kinds of fireworks are piled up in the entire warehouse. Tickets for the wedding have been sold to 500,000 each." "Wedding tickets? Can such things still be bought and sold?" Bartok said with some difficulty. In his mind, this behavior was not a kind of blasphemy against Lianping. The seats in the auditorium are limited, and 100 have been randomly distributed to civilians. These 100 seats can be bought and sold. In fact, even if the seats of other high-level people are sold, I think His Majesty will not mind. But so far no one has done so." Wonka smiled and shook his head, "You have just come to Earth and you are not used to it yet. You will know it later." At this point, there was a strange expression on his face and he asked, "By the way, your position can also be sold. 500,000 can buy you a lot of things to take back, including the wedding content. You can watch the live broadcast in the room." Bartok quickly shook his head in fright. "How can this be done? Even a sword cannot force me to do such a thing. That is blasphemous to His Majesty." Wonka saw Bartok, who was startled by his joke, laughing. At this moment, Olivia walked out of the changing room. I saw that she had changed into a long white dress, which made her whole body as beautiful as a lily. Seeing Wonka and Bartok sitting there, Olivia said with a red face, "I'm sorry to keep you waiting." If she didn't know that there were two people waiting outside, I'm afraid she wouldn't be able to help it. "Try on a dozen more outfits." "It doesn't matter, you look beautiful in this outfit." Next, Wonka took two more people to buy mobile phones, and then booked a hotel in advance. In just a few hours, the appearance of the two medieval men and women has become no different from modern people. At 11 o'clock in the evening, in the hotel, Olivia and Bartok each had a room. Olivia jumped onto the bed, sinking into the softest bed she had ever felt. She likes everything about Earth so much, even the bathroom in the hotel room here looks cleaner than Mundo's palace. She really wished that she was a mage so that she could stay and study in the magic school here. You can always enjoy the modern life of the Earth. Olivia was lying on the bed when a dazed feeling suddenly invaded her heart. The next moment, her mind relaxed and she fell asleep completely. Just after Olivia fell into a deep sleep, a cyan light slowly emerged from the center of her eyebrows, like some kind of cyan crystal slowly extending out. These cyan crystals continued to multiply rapidly in the air. Finally, it was completely separated from Olivia's body. They continued to combine and splice in front of the big bed in the hotel, and finally transformed into the shape of a man. The man sat on the sofa while humming an unknown piece of music. He just snapped his fingers, and the hot water bottle and instant coffee on the table began to fly into the sky by themselves. The wall-mounted TV also turned on by itself and began to jump among channels. When the TV jumped to a variety show, 2 cups of finished coffee were already placed on the table in front of the sofa. The man watched the variety show on the TV and laughed. But the strange thing is that no matter how loud he laughed, Olivia on the bed seemed not to hear it and fell deeply into sleep. For more than 2 minutes, there were bursts of rustling sounds in the air around the young man, and countless tiny particles were continuously combined. Those were the ubiquitous nanobugs in the air. They combined with each other and turned into a giant insect in front of the man. Countless lumps of metal were made, and then these lumps of metal were combined with each other to form individual bodies, and finally turned into Li Anping's figure. Li Anping sat in front of the man, looked at him carefully, and asked directly, "Did you provide the weapon built by Dionysus?" "Oh? Don't you ask me who I am," the man smiled. "I did provide the great dark sky to Dionysus, but I didn't expect that he was even stupider than I thought. All situations will fail. But it doesn't matter, it's this unpredictable chaos of the human heart that makes me put it down." With that said, the man picked up the cup of coffee in front of him, drank it, and said slowly, "Your little pet just spent more than 200 ways to scan my body. Is there any result?" Li Anping frowned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Seeing him like this, the man said, "Don't be nervous, I'm not protesting with you, let alone fighting with you. If that's the case, why would I come to the Earth secretly?" Li Anping narrowed his eyes and said nothing. When the other party first appeared in the hotel room, he had already discovered the other party through nanobugs, but when he used various detection methods, the man exceeded Li Anping's expectations. The other party is like a piece of chaos and a singularity that appeared before the Big Bang. Neither time nor space can leave the slightest trace on his body. It also seems that matter and energy have been blended into one ball. He is simply like a danger. It's a powder keg at the extreme, and here it is the Earth. Because of this, he chose to talk rather than directly fight, capture the opponent, or directly dissect the opponent. Thinking of this, Li Anping secretly decided to strengthen the Earth's defense system again to prevent this from happening. Let me introduce myself. My name is Chaos Tide, the demon god from the White Earth. Feeling Li Anping's flash of murderous intent, Chaos Tide added, "But I have no interest in fighting, destruction, or anything like that." "No." Li Anping said coldly, "Then what is your purpose of coming to Earth?" "It's nothing, I'm here to help you." "Help me?" "Just like helping Dionysus, I spread the seeds of chaos in the multiverse. I prefer to help the weak than the powerful." A mysterious smile appeared on Chaos Tide's face. "The White Land has been peaceful for too long. I don't like this situation. If there are some forces that fight against demons and even demon gods, then the entire multiverse will become it'll be even more chaotic." Hearing the other party's answer, Li Anping was stunned. If he is telling the truth, then this guy is a typical pervert, harming others without benefiting himself, and a super troublemaker. Seeing Li Anping's expressionless look, Tide of Chaos shrugged, "I can give you clear information. A high-ranking evil god warrior at the 8th level will arrive at the realm crossing gate in 8 months. It shouldn't be a problem to kill him, but after killing him, the Earth will really attract Hong's attention, and the evil gods are not so easy to deal with." Chaos Tide took another sip of coffee and continued, "Let's talk about Hong first. Although this guy is not the most powerful among us, he is the one who is most eager to pursue the ultimate. He is also the so-called heart of seeking the truth. The most intense one spends most of his life in seclusion. After saying this, Chaos Tide sighed, and said with a look of compassion, once he is released to fight you, the consequences will be unpredictable. To be continued, please search Ocean literature, novels are better, update faster, man at the top of the food chain, author, Seong-Lang Go. Chapter 440. Hong, does that mean the king of the Red River? Li Anping said calmly, what is his ability? Yes, it's the king of the Red River. Chaos Tide nodded and continued, didn't you kill Seagram? The abilities of the evil gods are similar, and so is Hong, but the strength has reached an incredible level. As a superior race born and raised on the White Land, all the evil gods follow the path of pure materialism. And Hong is the one who has reached the extreme in this regard. I estimate that with his strength, if he just walks out of the gate, if he doesn't restrain himself, his existence itself is enough to destroy most of the Milky Way. That would be a disaster for all humans on Earth. Hearing what Chaos Tide said, Li Anping's pupils shrank slightly. He couldn't tell whether what the other party said was true or false, but based on the information he kept collecting from the other party, it seemed that this was very likely true. The power of the demon god might be stronger than he imagined. So, we can't let him pass through the gate, right? That's not easy. Chaos Tide laughed. I said Hong's desire to seek the truth is very strong. Even if he noticed that the Earth had killed level 7 and level 8 demons in succession, he would just notice the side and would not really take action. He would only send the army of the evil gods to completely occupy or even destroy the universe where the Earth is. If you can't defeat the army of the evil gods, then everything will be over. If you destroy the opponent's troops, depending on your strength, the stronger your strength, the earlier Hong will take action personally. So if I were you, I would slowly consume the evil gods, constantly exchanging space for time. After listening to the information from Chaos Tide, Li Anping didn't speak. Chaos Tide didn't seem to be in a hurry, just watching the entertainment programs on the TV, like an ordinary person, laughing from time to time. Haha, among all the TV programs, I like this kind of variety show the most. Human hypocrisy, stupidity, greed, and chaos are all shown vividly in it. Li Anping glanced at the TV screen on the wall casually, and saw that the screen clicked and turned off by itself. Chaos Tide said helplessly, why did you turn off the TV? Stopping watching a show halfway is like reading a comic without reading the ending, leaving a movie halfway, and finding out that a woman is on her period before going to bed with her. Don't you feel uncomfortable doing such boring things? I am not your real body in front of me now, right? Li Anping ignored the other party's nonsense, just looked at Chaos Tide in front of him coldly, and said word by word, for the sake of providing me with information. Leave now, I won't chop off your claws. Oh, Chaos Tide raised his eyebrows and said thoughtfully, aren't you worried at all? 8 months later, the evil god clan, and a demon god with far greater power than you will set their sights here. If you are not careful, not only the Earth, but also the universe you are in will encounter an unprecedented crisis and usher in the real doomsday. You may survive. But there is no possibility for the Earthlings to survive. Why should I believe you? At this time, Li Anping had already analyzed the Chaos Tide in front of him, and saw a flash of white light. Li Anping's real body had appeared in front of Chaos Tide. Haha, it's tougher than I thought. Thinking of this, Chaos Tide waved his hand, and a disc appeared in front of Li Anping. There are 3 things in it. The detailed information of the 8th level warrior of the evil god tribe who came here will confirm what I said. There are also the technical information and origins of the great dark sky. Finally, there is a little gift from me for you. Seeing Li Anping take the disc, Chaos Tide laughed. In fact, there is a way to save you from fighting with Hong. You just have a conflict with the evil god tribe, not offending all the demons. So you only need to join the alliance of the other 2 demon gods. You already have. There is a black aura, which can be completely integrated into the demon world. And they are attacking a very high-level world recently, and they need the most powerful warriors to help them fight. 8 months later, if you defeat the 8th level evil god warrior, you will prove your value, and I will introduce you to them. With them as your umbrella, the universe where the Earth is located will completely become your territory. As long as you compensate the evil god tribe for something, Hong will not pursue it too much. The 8th level demon is definitely not my opponent, but the 9th level demon god is still uncertain about their nature. But the pervert in front of me is not invulnerable. However, it still takes time. Li Anping sneered in his heart, but said, "Aren't you afraid that when I grow up, I will pose a threat to all the demons in the White Land?" I said, "I like chaos and hate order." Chaos Tide shrugged, "The White Land has been peaceful for too long. With the existence of demon gods, the class and rule of the entire demon world are as solid as an unchanging neutron star. If you can pry them, that's exactly what I expect. Don't worry, it will be as you wish." "I hope so," he said carelessly, and Chaos Tide slowly faded and disappeared. His consciousness shuttled through the infinite universe every moment, and he didn't know how many seeds of chaos he had sown. Li Anping was just one of them. Chaos Tide had some expectations for this seed, but he didn't think that the other party could compete with the demon clan in a short time. It would probably take thousands or even tens of thousands of years before the seeds could bloom and bear fruit. Of course, the greater possibility was that they died before they sprouted. However, Li Anping looked at the other party's carelessness and didn't say anything. The current demon god level may not be able to kill him, but in terms of strength, it is probably above him. However, Li Anping's strength has been growing rapidly. He is confident that it won't be long before he will master the power of the demon god level, or even surpass the 9th energy level where the demon god is. Thinking of this, Li Anping's eyes flashed with a hint of hesitation, but this hesitation soon disappeared. He has turned into a ray of light again and disappeared in the hotel room. As for the kettle and coffee cups that had been moved in the room, they were all restored to their original positions by the nano-worms, as if nothing had ever happened. To be continued. Please search for Piaotian literature, the novels are better and updated faster.